let's bring in Teaser Tom and J Rob J to the Moon Cards. They've been on the show before, have not been on the stream before. They were streaming long before us because they are streamers by nature. But gentlemen, good to have you on the show. I know you've been on the show before, but we have a lot of new listeners who have come in. So I want to start with Jay, then I'll go to Tom here. Give a little bit about your background, and then we'll get into what To the Moon is, and then we'll talk about this exciting news that you have coming down and the value of, to me, the value of hard work and keeping grinding.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks so much for having us. Background by trade is an engineer by day, but then a passionate collector by night. So, when the Web3 space came about, I was just really excited about the intersection of Web3 and physical collectibles. Just always had a passion for collecting cards and all kinds of things. And then just was really invested into how the blockchain could really change the collectibles world. And we've started to see that come about. And then Tom, over to you.
Yeah. So Tom Gervasio, by day, I own businesses. At night, we're streamers and we're passionate about the collectibles industry, especially like Jay mentioned, the cross section, digital and physical. We do a lot of physical card openings on To the Moon cards, and we're co-owners, and it's been about 2 years now that we've been doing that, streaming multiple times a week.
How'd you guys meet? You're both VeeFriends. Was it through that community? Like, talk about like the background of that, and then talk a little bit about To the Moon cards.
Yeah, it was definitely through VeeFriends. Through VeeFriends cards specifically. Jay's the godfather of VeeFriends card collecting, and my entry point was in the Series 2 cards, and really I think our friendship and partnership in business started at VCon, the second VCon, the one in Indianapolis, VCon 2023.
I didn't
realize
where
we met for the first time.
I didn't realize that was where you guys first met, because I do remember there was an event in New York where Jay walked in and everybody was like, "Clear the room, the competitor has arrived," when there was like a tournament going on. That somebody, I don't remember, it was a Cats event or what it was, but it was somebody who was running that. But I didn't realize you guys didn't meet or didn't really get things going until VCon 2. How does that start? Like, how does that become like a business that you're like how do you go from like, hey, we're just friends, or good to meet you, dude, or good to meet you in person, to we're doing so? Because I know for me and Cap, it was totally by accident. We're just here, just still doing this.
Yeah.
So we have different versions. Jay, you go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, I love
this. I think, long story short, like, I was a big collector of the VeeFriends card series, and VCon was a great example. I had Gary was kind enough to give me a space at VCon to sell and kind of trade, and just had this spot for card collectors inside VCon. And but I was not the outgoing personality streamer type, right? I was more of the closet collector, rip boxes on your own in your basement kind of thing. And Tom was Tom had started his own thing with ripping cards on stream, and his outgoing personality, his humor, his on-screen charisma, just like, we figured if we combine those two things, the background in collecting and the knowledge of the cards, and then his great personality, the two come together, we could make something really awesome. And that's kind of where we're at now.
What's your version, Tom? Outgoing, gregarious? It doesn't sound like you, right? It's yeah.
Not at all. No. So yeah, I was streaming for a few months before VCon, so had a very small following at that point. But I mean, we were talking in a group chat that was set up by just VeeFriend card enthusiasts. There was a few at the time, and we were all in a group chat, and that's where we first became aware of each other. But then I started streaming, and then he had asked me to kind of join him at the booth, and that was just such a blast. We hit it off. I didn't go with the intention of having a business partner. And then you fast forward after VCon, I kept streaming, and then I think it was towards the end of July or August that we were like, let's make this official and do it, because I've been streaming, and I've been able to sell cards and do breaks and all of that, and so I need inventory to sell. Jay's like, well, I have a boatload of cards that I'm looking to sell, but no platform to do it on. So it just kind of fit, and us living about less than an hour away from each other randomly really helped. And our families we have kids around the same age and all that. It just kind of all worked out.
That's a fascinating click, and it's always one of those funny things where it's like a a token on the internet caused you to meet somebody who becomes like one of your best friends and business partners, who, by the way, was effectively in your own backyard on both of you, right? I mean, you're less than an hour away from each other by pure coincidence. So that's I always love those stories about Web3 where it's like there's people I've met in my hometown similarly who are 20 minutes from me who I never met before Web3. And then I meet them and we end up hanging out and becoming friends. So I think it's a really cool story and cool background. With that said, like give like the full background. So you stream, you're selling cards. I want to hear about, To the Moon cards a little bit more before we get into like the news of the day. And then a little bit about like what it's like when you start seeing the like teacher Katie's in the chat being like GM To the Moon cards in all caps. And there's people like you're recognized within the community. Gary's making jokes about you guys on stage at the last VCon when we had the Uno tournament, which was a fun one. I got unceremoniously bounced at the first table. I guess like talk about like doing To the Moon cards, the reception it got, the way it started to take off. Because I think like you start by just doing something you like, and then it just so happens to take off.
Yeah. So like I said, there was a small group chat of us, and it started off with, we would take our hits from when we open boxes privately, when Jason is being a basement ripper, and he'll post some polls, and I pulled some polls, and then I started videoing myself and recording the reaction if I got a big poll in the cards. And then, I was also super into gaming, Call of Duty, Warzone, all that. So I was a Twitch user as a viewer. And I was like, let me figure this Twitch thing out, and maybe we can all kind of celebrate and enjoy the polls together. And that's kind of how the stream started. It was called something else because we weren't To the Moon. Jay created To the Moon for that booth at VCon. But so I started streaming, and then I started pulling clips from it. 5, 6 people in there watching. I would pull a clip from a big poll, post it on Twitter, and more people would be like, oh, that's cool. Where can I find this? And, just kind of rinse and repeat. Then at VCon, I was like, the amount of reception I got, from maybe 20, 30 people that are like, oh, I've seen your clips. I was like, let me go in on this. And I ended up buying 40 boxes of cards there. They're $155 a box, which is crazy now because they're about 400.
Some degen shit right there, though. It's just like, oh yeah, you know what? Like, I got some pretty good reception. Send it. I like that.
Yep. I met a very young face Adam Rips there and didn't know who he was, or maybe like talked to him once before that. And I was like, listen, can I get 40 boxes, but I don't want them here. Can you ship them to my house? He was like, here's email this email, and we'll get it sent to you. So that's what happened. I was made fun of for paying up to $155 a box at the time because that was a ripoff, which is again hilarious to think about now. But after that, when I had that inventory, I started to try to get creative. Like, what can we do to get more people involved? I started bringing people up on screen, doing community box battles where you buy half a box and battle someone else who bought the other half a box for a prize. And it was one of those streams that Gary ended up tweeting, texting, putting in the Discord, all of that. Like, hey, hop in here if you want to learn about VeeFriends cards. And I watched the viewership go from like 20 to 30 to 800. And that's still the most we've had on stream at the same time. But he was in chat. Chat was flying. I was red-faced because I just been streaming for like 3 months at the time. Gary's apparently telling me to talk about the cards. I can't see any comments because they're flying. And so it took like 10 minutes and someone calling my cell phone to let me know, like, dude, Gary's asking you to go over the cards. So that was a huge night. And from there, you had an opportunity. Like Gary said some not so great comments, like, you're fumbling this, biggest fumble, because I couldn't see his comments. So I was like, here's an opportunity. I had not been a big poster on X, and I was still new to streaming. That I was like, let me take this as an opportunity. What would Gary do? And I took clips of every comment he said, like, what a miss, you're fumbling, all those types of things. There was a whole bunch. and made a video and pretended like I was super upset and I was going to quit streaming because of it. And then halfway through, completely flipped it, gave it right back to Gary. And it got a lot of attention there. And to the point where, Gary didn't watch the video because he DM'd me and was like, I'm so sorry if you took it the wrong. I was like, dude, watch the video. And then he was like, oh my God, thank God. Because he thought he offended me. And it just kind of from there, I was like, this is going to be the angle I do is kind of like that fun banter back and forth. And we've maintained that relationship, Gary. That's why Gary calls Jay a 10 out of 10 and me a 4 out of 10, like he did last night or 2 nights ago on Whatnot. It's still the relationship we have. And he's been such a big supporter, and he buys into breaks, and he still will, retweet a stream announcement so that we get more viewers. Their channel raids ours on Whatnot. It's been unbelievable. So 2 years later, we're still going strong.
It's funny, like, and I think the personality fits you, right? Like, you're a guy who can play that game a little. You Italian? You're an Italian guy, right?
Italian from New York. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm half Italian. My whole family's from New York. It's like, that's like a lane that we could play in together and have that fun, right? And kind of like give it back and forth. And, Jay, you mentioned you're an engineer by trade. You're a little bit quieter. So like you being the 10 out of 10 and just kind of like the steady Eddie, it's like, it's almost like you have that juxtaposition that you need in that sort of business relationship, which I think is really cool. And Jay, I want to get your take on this. Like, you guys have mentioned, Gary a few times, obviously Andy's over there as well. People like Jeremy as well. How critical, because one of the things we talk about is like the ability for founders to communicate and support community builders. And they really shined a light on you guys. Obviously, you took advantage of it, like the content that you talk about that you put out, Tom, and sort of, Jay setting up the booth and showing up and making sure everything's professional. You have jerseys, you do all your stuff. But how critical do you see that support from a founder like a Gary or someone like an Andy to be like, you know what, like, let's sort of further support this thing and fan the flames? I'm curious your take on that.
Yeah, the whole VeeFriends staff, they're really aware. Like, they're always watching, and I don't think it's just us. I think they support a lot of the community in general. They show up to spaces, they promote people's content, and I'm grateful for it. Like, I mean, it's helped us stay really relevant in that world, and they continue to surprise and delight us. Like, VeeFriends is coming out with a Topps Chrome release here, which is a major deal for the brand and the cards themselves. And I think, they called us a few weeks ago and offered us to do a sketch card in the Topps Chrome release. And little things like, I mean, that actually wasn't, I shouldn't call that a little thing. That was a big deal. Like, I was floored by that. So Tom and I did a sketch card in that, and it's just continuing to give us these little opportunities, sometimes big opportunities. Tom and I are really intentional about not asking for things. Like, we rather VeeFriends do what they feel like is appropriate and how they want to give us flowers. And we're not ones to really like, hey, can you do this for us? Gary, can you do this? Like, that's not really our style, and it's worked really well for us. And I think we let the brand do what they want to do, and they've been incredibly generous. And I value all those relationships there so much. They're all really precious to us. And it's been fun, like, seeing Jeremy go from a community member to a staff member, and just being there from the beginning and seeing the evolution of the brand and being just a small piece of that is just, it's crazy to think about now.
Yeah, you are part of the brand. It is very interesting to think about the fact that you. I'll let Thomas, so you're going to get in here, so I'll let you get in here in a second. But it's really interesting when you say that, because like I had a conversation with someone yesterday. We did this thing, ApeCon. It went all day. It like ended up, with a ton of like did pretty well, like better than we ever expected. And I got a message from someone saying like, you guys have contributed to the value of the Bored Ape ecosystem and the brand, and you feel like you're part of something. You feel like you are not, like I used to say, like in Web 1, you were the consumer, you bought stuff. In Web 2, you're the product, they sold your information. And in Web 3, if you really give it a go, you are part of the brand. And like, I do feel like that. And Tom, I'll let you kind of get on with the sort of VeeFriends question. I don't want to take you too off track because I saw you jumping in there, but like, it's kind of cool to think of yourself as like part of that sort of brand of somebody that you went from a community member to like people associate that with you.
Yeah. It's pretty unbelievable. And it's a true honor. One of the biggest honors of my life, because, seeing the Catfish, which is the character that I've associated myself with from the beginning. I own the One of One Gold, and the Catfish making a comic book, and next to the exactly.
There you are.
I
in the
don't
Brave
particularly
Mason
love that pin.
yeah, Teacher Katie sent it to me though, so all loved.
Oh well, Peach is the best. She can do no wrong.
Yeah.
I just wanted to jump in when Jay was talking about Jeremy. He's probably sick of me doing it, but I couldn't care less. They're literally like Gary has amplified to the moon, helped us grow and continues to help us grow, but there wouldn't not be at all a To the Moon, or at least that involves me, without Jeremy. I would have not streamed. He was encouraging. I went to him, asked him a few questions. So I would not have done a single post stream or anything without Jeremy. So shout out to Jeremy. That's all I was going to add before.
No, one of our faves here as well. He's here every single day. He jumps up a lot, and he's somebody that he's not a lot of people have my cell phone number in this space, and he's one of them. So he's a good egg. But that said, like y'all have, with that background, y'all have some pretty big news coming out from your work. And again, one of the things I appreciate this, and we'll dig in more on it, because I also like to impart sort of lessons onto listeners for people like yourselves who you have day jobs and you worked on things, but you've managed to build this thing up to the point where now you've got a pretty cool deal. Can you talk a little bit about the news that y'all are sharing and what's coming up in the next several months?
Yeah, so we're VeeFriends through and through, but we also have this cards and collectibles company. We're not, limited to just one IP. And so when we saw Pudgy Penguins was coming out with a trading card game as well, we were like, this is again right in our wheelhouse. It's the cross section of digital and physical collectibles in the Web3 space. So reached out to the team at Orange Cap Games, which is a TCG game maker company. Led by Pudgy holder Spencer, and what an awesome guy, by the way. And they were very, very open to collaborating, and they came up with this game called Vibes, physical card game that has an online version. The creators of the game and the owners of Orange Cap are competitive, like almost world competitive champion Magic the Gathering players. So they created a game inspired by Magic that's more accessible, more, they say, I don't play Magic, but there's the graveyard and a lot of dark undertones. So they're like, instead of the graveyard, let's make it the ice. And, instead of this, they'll make the huddle, and instead of killing you vibing. So they created this game called Vibes, and I don't know how aware everyone is of it, but it's a very, very fun game, quite addicting. As someone who was not a traditional TCG player, I find myself playing it. Whoever was on before us talking about how addictive they were to that game, that's how I am with Vibes. I find myself with the spare 15 minutes, I'm jumping on and hopping on a game on the online version. And we were invited to their headquarters to play the physical game. It's also such a blast. Tournaments, we're playing in one tomorrow. But so we started to do some breaks and collaborate with them, and then continue to grow the relationship with the team over at Orange Cap, and that's kind of led to our next venture. And Jay, you can take it from there.
Yeah, I think one of the things that Tom and I have struggled with along the way is we do these streams usually twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week. And, if you're not familiar with the Whatnot platform, check it out. It's fast-paced social shopping, essentially. We go on, we live stream, but have a shopping component to it where you can buy cards and we can rip packs for you in the moment. And I think one of the things that we've struggled with is inventory, right? Like VeeFriends, up until this Top Chrome's release, hasn't really done a retail product that you see on a store shelf, right? And so we've had to scour Discord and different layers of the internet to get boxes of cards. And not just that, I mean, in general, like the trading card market is very controlled by a few big distributors, and they are really old school in their thinking, and they really focus on traditional brick and mortar card shops, right? And Tom and I, and Gary's been preaching this too, we see the growth of this social shopping, whether it be TikTok or Instagram or whatnot. We see that explosion happening right before our eyes. And it's like, we really felt that the next version of what To the Moon is up to is going to be around fulfilling that need for inventory, support, and all the things that go into creating a trading card stream. And so we have partnered with Vibes from Orange Cap Games to be distributors exclusively to online streamers for their next release, Legend of the Littles, coming out this summer. So we will be gathering people from all over to hopefully have them purchase a product from us, purchase these trading cards from us at a wholesale price. So we are able to offer wholesale to people that use Whatnot as a platform, whether it's their full-time job or whether it's a side gig or just something they do in the evenings. We'll be able to provide them inventory at a price that makes them competitive in that space. And so we feel like that's going to check a box for a lot of people that are really trying to grow something, and we'll be that supplier there. But we also envision this as being not just, hey, here's some product, but Tom and I want to provide coaching. We want to educate on how to break these particular cards. We want to partner with other IPs to bring their IP to the social platform. So we couldn't be more excited and grateful for Orange Cap for kind of taking a chance on us as we embark on this new endeavor, and allowing us to sell to this really unique market. It's going to be a really fun summer. Yeah.
How do you, so this is really fucking cool. I'm very happy for y'all. And one of the reasons it's really cool to see is it's cool to see like people who showed up, did it because they loved it, get recognition. That's pretty cool. Don't take it for granted. I think one of the things you said earlier that I want to like double tap on that I meant to at the time is you don't take the support for granted. And I think so many people do, where it's not like you get entitled because you got a little bit of love. It's like, hey, if we get extra support, that's pretty cool. And the community recognizes that. And it's been sort of a fan to the flames, but you're going to keep doing what you're doing, regardless of whether Gary or Adam or anybody else supporting. Like, it's not going to stop you from doing what you're doing, which I think is really respectable. So you are now sort of doing sort of this B2B, B2C combo gig, right? Where you're doing sort of the ripping and you're also sort of teaching people and training them. But before that, it's like, explain to somebody in the audience who maybe is like spinning up their business. You've had success sort of, not convincing, but getting recognized by the VeeFriends community. And now you've managed to pitch, maybe one of the major faces of Web3 and Pudgy Penguins on having you be part of a very important distribution moment for them. So how do you sell in a pitch like that? Obviously, without giving too much, but if like you're recommending to people how you have that conversation, you shot your shot, which I think is a great, just that alone is great advice, because so many people are afraid to even shoot the shot. Like, you're never going to know. But how do you sell that through to say, like, look, we've been doing this. We have the goods. Like, I know you guys would have been good enough for it, but this is a cold DM. How do you have that conversation or even breach it? And then how do you get that across the goal line?
Yeah, it's the original thing that started all was a cold DM to the main Vibes account. But fast forward after a successful, bunch of streams and onboarding and promotion, they were holding a tournament, an in-person game tournament at their HQ, and we were like, we got to go. They invited us, and it was an open invite, but they were like, it'd be cool if you guys came. They let us come early. We did some content around it, and while we were there, we were like, hey, can we get a couple minutes? And like I mentioned, they're very, very open to just talking, collaborating. They welcomed ideas, and we said we have one, and so we sat down at their office in New York City and kind of just talked about it. And we said, listen, there's a gap in the market. There are people that would love to talk about Vibes, to open it, to show gameplay, share strategies, show deck builds, and why this one works and why these cards are great. And, Jay mentioned there's some old fashioned views. I mean, it's working for them, but Tops won't distribute directly to streamers unless you're doing it 40, 50 hours a week. And it being a full-time gig, it's very weighed towards brick and mortar stores. So, we just kind of explained what Jay said, is that, then as a streamer for a few years now and kind of got to know this business a little bit, You know, the number one thing about becoming a successful streamer where you can afford and make any money to continue to build and do it, because you have to keep upgrading as you go, is getting product at a price point that you can make a margin on. You know, a lot of these things are mass produced. So why buy from you at a higher price? You know, it just doesn't make sense. So it all comes down to what you buy, and then also knowing the product well. There are a lot of people that know these these trading card games, and but they know it inside and out, but they can't buy the product at a price. So, you know, we just kind of said, you know, if there was someone that could provide distribution at a wholesale price or below retail price to streamers exclusively, if you look that up, there's no one doing that. So it just felt like you know, if we're all kind of moving forward in this Web3 world, you know, social live commerce shopping and all of that, it feels like it's a no-brainer. So we were like, how, like, let's try to be at the forefront of that. And they were so receptive to it. They loved the idea, and just a few more conversations, and they agreed.
So the business model effectively lets them take like distribution in this particular audience out of their hands. Y'all can manage that. And what it does is it lets those maybe streamers that, you know, aren't getting 1,000 people, but are getting 100 people or 50 people to say, you were left off the table before. You sat at the kids' table, the adults' table gets the wholesale, and you get what comes down. Now everybody's getting to come to the table. So if there's somebody out there listening who's a streamer, who's a collector, who says either A, I want this at a wholesale price to stream, or B, is it possible if someone says, I just want to buy 10 boxes from you at a wholesale price and I want to break them on stream, but I'm not going to sell them? Or is it specifically for resellers and you want to make sure, like, who are the people that you would say should reach out to you if they're like, hey, I want to get involved in this when this drops?
Yeah, the target is definitely people who are reselling, and doing breaks, because the goal is it's good for Orange Cap and Vibes, because then more they're going to see their product on more streams, and that's what benefits them. It also benefits the streamer to do so, because they can make money and do it. We're not trying to sell to wholesale for people to just get cheap product, because that's not the goal. It is meant for more exposure. So anyone who streams really of any size, or even has aspirations of streaming to do breaks because they're passionate about cards or vibes or anything related, that's who we're targeting. But looking to talk about it and explain it. And if you don't know, part of the service is to do a call or a one sheet of education of here's how many cards there are, here's the chases for the collectible people, because there's two modes of collecting in this. For Vibes is the gameplay aspect for people who want to be aggressively good players, and then the collectability, because there's chase cards that are worth lots of money, you know, $5,000+ transactions for a single card, which is real. I mean, go check eBay, sold listings, you know, they're there. So we can show you exactly what to look for, why certain cards are more collectible or better for gameplay or whatever, so that you can then convey it with knowledge to your viewers. So that's also part of the service, which is not offered currently.
So you're outsourcing education a little bit as well, right? Like, I mean, you mentioned helping people stream and helping them with different tips on that, but part of it is, you know, if someone's streaming, because like to your point, so my kids like ripping packs. They have no idea what chase items are. They just get excited. I'm like, cool. I got a Pokemon like box the other day from BZ. I know you're Courtyard guys, but from BZ, it's a sponsor, so I gotta shout it out. But like I got a box in the mail, and my kids ripped them open, and I put every single one in like penny sleeves, because I just want to make sure anything that was shiny looking. But like we don't know what's a value. They don't care. But like in this world, it's like I could buy a Vibes pack, a Vibes 2-pack, by the way. I've got plenty of these, but like buy a Vibes pack, rip them open, and you'll be like, these are chase cards if you're ripping it for this reason. These are cards you want in the game for this reason. This is what you can educate your audience on. If you're doing breaks specifically where people are buying parts of boxes or individualized cards, they're going to know if they get a really exciting item. So it's like the idea of like when you're pulling a card and you see like the card go away and everybody goes, you know, ape shit on the stream because it's a good one. They're going to know how to do that because you're well educated and well versed on the game. So that's part of the service you're saying, right? Like somebody can say, hey, I'm buying this wholesale, and you'll help them learn everything they need to know.
Yeah, I think
exactly.
Some of that comes from passion. I think like Tom and I really made this pact like we're not going to sell something that we don't really enjoy ourselves. And so like we are actually playing this game, playing in tournaments. I'm driving 2 hours tomorrow to play in a tournament, right? Like this is sincere. This is not just like how much product can we unload. Like we really love this brand, and we wouldn't associate, and sell something we weren't passionate about. And so, a lot of this education comes natural to us because like we are players of the game. We are grading the cards. We are chasing the promo cards. Like that's just who we are. And so it's really natural for us. It's not something that we're really struggling to do. And I think that passion will come through when we work with people. Yeah.
Is that the Cherry Hill, New Jersey tournament tomorrow?
That's right.
It is,
At
yeah.
Top Deck Games. Yep.
Is that open? So I pinned it up top. If someone's listening in, they'd like to also join you. Is it open to the public?
It is. No registration. Just pop in tomorrow. You need to bring a deck.
I say, do they need a deck to be, or can they buy that there?
You can buy stuff
there. Yeah, but ideally coming with the deck is ideal. I know it's last minute, but yeah, it's going to be a fun event.
Yeah, but don't not come because you don't have cards prior. They do they sell starter decks so that you can so that you have something that you can play right out the gate. And even though, it might not be the strongest deck in the tournament, it's still worth it to learn the game. There's $1,000 prize, I believe, and it's really an education event. They do learn to play at these stores, and they have a great team that travels around and does these events at these big stores to teach the game and onboard people, and that's kind of what this is. People will see the excitement in playing the game. It's a ton of fun. And just going back, shout out to Beezy. We're fans of Beezy too. I bought several Vibes boxes on Beezy.
Education one, yes, I wholeheartedly agree. We also talk so often about the power of in real life on this show. And I mean, you guys are proof of that. Like you just shared how an in real life event similar to the one you're talking about tomorrow led to this opportunity we're talking about today. So I think that's the other piece. Even if you're, curious about the game or, you don't have a pack, but if you're excited about streaming, if something you want to get into, it's not my world, but I can attest to what you're all saying. I actually got pitched. I saw a pitch deck last month, maybe. Companies raising, it's not all public yet, so I can't share all the details. But long story short, it's what you guys were saying about the distribution and how that it's I don't want to call it a monopoly, but it's a near monopoly by these brick and mortar retail stores. And the pitch deck I saw was a company out of the UK coming to the States to open 2 or 3 retail stores just to sell cards. And they're bringing streamers into that environment because exactly what you said, the streamers can't get the cards out, by themselves at a whole. So it's like this is a scenario of even though I'm not in that space, absolutely realize that you're solving a real challenge in that industry today, that there's a lot more people that want to participate that simply don't have access. Not to be cheesy and pull out they're democratizing, but yeah, this is another example about this is democratizing an industry to some degree, to where it's a real issue where, again, this deck I saw was tens of millions of dollars this company's raising. They've got athletes on board, and because this opportunity is so massive that you guys are helping solve for.
Yeah, we think we're early. We think we've got a good opportunity to be one of the first at it, and we're going to continue to grow and look at other IPs. If this sounds attractive to you and you've been listening and you say, hey, I stream on Whatnot or TikTok or whatever, tothemooncards.com, you'll see right on our homepage is a link. It's a Google form to fill out, just expressing interest. We're not quite ready to go live with all the details yet, but you will be on our contact list if this interests you. So right on our homepage, tothemooncards.com. Sign up, put your info in there. We don't ask for much, and we'll be in touch. Yeah.
It's really interesting to me, to hear this idea of this model that you're building for something that sort of doesn't exist. And I think it's just a really good example of where we're going streaming wise, where we're going with the internet, where we're going with sort of this break culture, where it's the empowerment of the many instead of the empowerment of the few. And I think that it's a really interesting North Star that you have. And one of the crazy parts is, there is a very high probability at some point you're going to talk to someone who's going to become a big streamer, who's, you know what I mean? Like that idea that you could like lead to someone else having your level of success right after you. Like that's a pretty cool way that you could like empower that person who maybe previously didn't know how. By the way, I can also attest, even if you don't have a deck, I've gone to VeeFriends, compete and collect games that I've done without a set of cards, and it's a great welcoming environment. You learn the game, you watch people play. I will say, Tom and Jay are going to look at you like when I play Halo and there's like a guest on the other team, the way I look at them. If you roll in with the starter deck, that's how they're looking at you for the game. So just be ready. It's like, Lions fan 69 and Lions fan 69-1 walk in the room. You're like, okay, I'm going to win this match. And then sometimes they surprise you and their friends are Sharky. You're like, shit. But no, very cool that you're doing that. So again, if you're out there and you're interested in this, obviously To the Moon Cards, reach out to Jay, reach out to Tom. They're both obviously very receptive as well, and very communicative on how they do things. They do go to I think the Gary School of how to interact in business, and I think that they do that well. So is the goal, like, you think this is a business you can like grow long term? Is that the goal, to be like, hey, we got vibes now, let's knock that one out of the park. Now we have a use case. Let's go to the net. And so is the goal to continue to go down the road with other cards? Like what other cards would you want to do this with potentially? What other cardboard would you want to get into?
Yeah, we've we still have that interest in Web3. Like we've got a bunch of Azuki TCGs on pre-order, right? We were able to secure a lot of those. We see that being a big possible IP for us, and we would love to sell their product. And I think, VeeFriends is just getting started. Like that's going to continue to be big for us. We have a tremendous amount of Topps Chrome inventory coming in. And we hope to see updates possibly to their TCG later this year. But the Pokemon space, for example, is super competitive and super saturated. We're really looking for those IPs that are willing to be a little creative with us and kind of test out this new way of distribution. So it's not going to be the right fit for every IP, and we're okay with that. But yeah, I think the other thing that we struggle with is our time, right? We can only stream really twice a week. Like if we had the capacity, Tom and I could stream 5 days a week, 6 days a week, but we don't have that capacity, right? So we can grow this side of the business and a lot better on our own time. When we have an hour here, we can grow that part of the business. And so yeah, this is where we're headed. I think we've reached our capacity on live streaming, but this part really excites us for growth reasons. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. we love live streaming, right? We have so much fun. I say it all the time because I'll sip some drinks while we're streaming, and this is my version of going out, and having a drink with friends, because we just have a great time. But like Jay mentioned, there's a ceiling there, and we're pretty much at it with our current schedule. So if the business was just us streaming and buying and reselling cards, it's a fun side hustle. And this is how we saw it after 2 years of streaming. This was always kind of our goal to grow. And unlike the $10 million raise and buying the stores and all that, it's just the two of us. We've never done anything beyond that. So while we are just how we're targeting small to mid-size streamers, we're targeting small to mid-size or startup IPs and trading cards. And hopefully we can, like you said, have success with these IPs, Orange Cap and Vibes being the first one, our first client, and then it can, hopefully we crush it and knock it out the park, and then someone else wants to do it because we did such a good job. So, and we're having those conversations now, already setting up for the second client. So yeah, that's the goal.
It's very cool. And I think a couple things I'll say in it, and then I'll kind of ask one more question. I'll let you all get out of here. I appreciate the, you coming through, because I admire people who have a passion, who build, who have, I just like good people. Like you, like I could see you two being pumped if somebody becomes bigger than all of us, who you train on like pudgy cards. Like you wouldn't be like, oh, why them and not us? You'd be like, yo, that's awesome. And so like that type of person is the person I like to see succeed. So I love hearing this. And I think it's cool that it's like you're in this unique position where you understand this world of the Azuki, the VeeFriends, and the Pudgy. So there's not a lot of people who exist in that world with a real passion, because people like to fake passion in like bull markets, for example. But like people like you can only fake it for so long, right?
Yep.
And so like there's a true passion there. There's a real like you want to do this thing. And I think really doubling down on like your niche and understanding like where you have that strength is really cool. And you just happen to have complementary skill sets with the two of you, which makes it like really, I think, a well-rounded team, right? When you're not the same person, but you're actually very you have those complementary skill sets and how you approach things. So very cool to see. I guess like for anybody who's out there, so you mentioned reach out to you if they want to, potentially be involved here. And we'll have you on again. We'll bring it up to our audience at other times and things as we go, just in case to remind people. But reach out to you if they're interested in that. And then when is this all happening? Like when do the vibes, sort of second set drop? Like when should people be anticipating that?
Right now, projection is the end of July this summer. So that's when second set should be landed in the country. So the communication with us getting set up will be a few months prior to that. So, the sooner the better to sign up. But the next set is projected to be here end of July, early August, something like that.
Awesome. Well, look, anything else that maybe we missed that we didn't cover this morning? Like I said, I always like giving, people like yourselves as much air cover as possible because I think it's really cool. And it's kind of been cool to watch kind of from the beginning and get really excited. And like, again, like the content, like I remember the video you're talking about, the one with Gary, that's really funny. You're streaming, you're doing like greatest showman videos and stuff. Like it's like, there's always like something fun going on. Like the back and forth discourse with other people in the community is very cool. Anything that we missed that we didn't cover this morning, you want to make sure people know, or any other things you want to leave us with?
I don't think so. We just are grateful for the support. You've been a longtime supporter of ours. I remember talking to you at that event, after Comic-Con that night, and just I have so much respect for what you're doing too. And thank you for the partnership and just being invested in what we're doing. It means a lot.
Awesome.
Yeah, you guys have been super generous with us, and we couldn't be more thankful for it.
Super stoked. Well, thanks for joining us today. Like excited to see everything y'all are building. Exciting to be along for the ride to watch, and we'll continue to support wherever we can. And we'll definitely have you back on again over the summer at the very least to talk a little bit more about this as it gets ready for launch, to celebrate everything you'll have. If you can fit us in at that point, I'm sure you're going to be hella busy leading up to it, but we will try.
When we come back in the summer, we're ripping packs together. 100%.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So,
Hell yes. Hell yes.
Yeah.
Now you're talking our language.
Jay, let's send them packs ahead of time.
Yeah.
We'll all four of us will rip together. Let's do all it.
It'll be a blast. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Can't wait. Well, thanks for joining us. We will we'll have you on again soon.
Sounds good.
Captain
Thanks,
Steve,
guys.
thank you so much.
So much.
Right on.